Great job, Carson. Great
Oh,
music.
sorry, we're live.
We're live now. Yeah, you're
Okay.
live.
All right. Whew. Let me know when
Man,
you need me again.
I'm fired up. I'm fired up.
Yeah.
Welcome back to episode number 135. This week we have lost Brandon for his daughter's graduation, but it's a good excuse. But yet we have another great guest, Isabella Bedoya. Is that the correct spelling?
Yep.
All right, we
Yes.
got it right. We
You
got it
did it.
right. And we are going to talk about something today. Carson, you were joking before we went live here about having a digital twin, right? So you can be out golfing and but the show must go on. The sales show must go on. Um, we're gonna and welcome to Bob. He's probably going to leave because this is going to be an AI conversation. And Bob, um, but we're going to talk about I think things that people hear a lot about right now, but don't really know what it means and what the impact is going to be and all of those kinds of things. So, Isabella, we're really interested in your expertise, and we'll have you give a little bit of your background here in just a second. Before we do that, want to thank the Fist Bump team, as always, for sponsoring everything here, getting everything together, making it all happen. So if you have not already, go check out getfistbumps.com, and doing a lot of cool stuff. And I think Brandon will be back with us next week. So his daughter is graduating from college today, so he has a good excuse.
We'll let that one slide.
Yeah, we'll let it slide. We barely let it slide, but nonetheless. All right. So Isabella, you are the co-CEO of a company called Infinite AI. Is that
Yes.
so? Tell us about you and Infinite AI and what they do, and then we'll kind of start digging into what this really means to modern selling.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here today, and I'm excited to share with all of you a little bit more about how you can actually start using AI in the sales process. Just for a quick synopsis, I guess, at Infinite AI, we started implementing AI employees. We were one of the first agencies in the market to start doing this. We've been in business for about a year and a half now, and it's pretty much just been rethinking the whole sales process, right? From every moment the lead is generated all the way through how do you actually maximize the lifetime value and how can we automate certain parts of the process, or at least most of it, without having to increase human intervention, or increase additional headcount when you're growing your business.
Brilliant. And I will say that this is the way of the world. I mean, this is where organizations are going. I work for a large company that was literally in a meeting a few weeks ago, hearing senior leaders in our organization talking about number one, how an individual contributor leveraging AI agents is more productive and impactful than full teams of humans are today. And the implications of that, I think, are exciting, but they're also, it kind of expands your mind to really think about like the what's possible. On the flip side, I think it organizations are looking at how do we reduce the cost of sale, right? It's
Yes.
going to be critical going forward to be as optimized as possible because of, all the way to shareholder value to making this buyer first market that we're in, as, you know, optimal as possible for everyone involved. So yeah, this is an exciting topic and one that we haven't really dove into up till now.
Yeah, that seems like the modern future of modern selling, right? So
Future of modern selling.
that's
Yes.
right. So what you mentioned the term Isabella, an AI employee. What does that mean exactly? What does that translate to somebody, and what does it mean to hire an AI employee?
So think of it, it's the same thing as hiring a employee, right? Like a human employee. Think of it the same way. An AI employee is like it's going to be able to actually create functions and actually do certain tasks within your business. So it's not just like when you're interacting with ChatGPT, you are interacting with AI, but you have to kind of initiate every task. With an AI employee, if you it basically it's a series of automations, attached to AI so that that way it can actually take those actions based on whatever automation you set up, right? So it goes from just being a chatbot to now it's actually taking tasks, whether it's doing in sales, for example, right? It could be as simple as doing a database reactivation or setting it up so that every time someone opts into your Facebook ad, the AI calls immediately right away. So it really just depends on what pieces you're automating, but that's the simplest way to think about it. AI with automations to achieve certain outcomes.
So would the AI only do would it be sort of multi or omni-channel in a sense that maybe it would send a text message, maybe it would send an email, maybe it would make a phone call, maybe it'd do a phone call and an email, and does it know how to do those things, and how does it decide to do something, along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends how you set it up. The way that we set ours up, we do have SMS, email, and phone call. So it's part of the workflow, right? So we put it in the prompt, and we also put it in the workflow. If the client, for example, says needs like I need more information, we know that that's going to trigger an email, probably an SMS, and then also prompt them to schedule for a second call. So it really just depends on how you train it. The best way to think about it is what is your current manual process, and then if you have a solid manual process, then it's just thinking about how can we automate it and what tools, what AI tools we can bring in to actually bring in the full automation of it.
You probably have fewer HR issues with these folks too, I would imagine. I jest. When you think about this, Isabella, and obviously our audience is sellers, sales leaders. How should we be thinking about, let's be real. I mean, some sellers are probably freaking out thinking, well, wow, this is going to come in and replace me. How do we keep the humanity amidst this inevitable shift toward exploring everything AI can do?
Yeah, that's a really valid question. And I think the way to kind of think about it, especially where we are with AI right now, think of this as like your front line, right? It's not necessarily going to be your senior leaders or your senior management. It's really just the front line. It's going to, AI at this moment can help you automate the mundane. It can help you help your clients at a way faster rate than having to wait forever for a customer service rep, for example, or a sales rep. So, it's just your frontline defense. Now, sellers, the future of sales reps is going to be having to actually learn how to utilize these tools, right? Because companies are going to start implementing AI employees and AI voice agents and all of this. So, as a sales rep, as a seller, knowing how to use these tools is going to set you apart because it still needs think about it this way, right? Right now, you have, let's say, you're a sales manager, you have a bunch of employees, and they're limited by their human capacity. They can only do maybe like 100 calls a day. Maybe they can only, reach out to their leads or their prospects. Maybe they follow up with them once a month or very, very little. So with AI, you can do it at scale. So it immediately puts you in the seat of a manager. Now you're managing your team of AI sales employees that are all trained to do different tasks in volume. Does that make a little bit more sense?
It does. I think it's fascinating because, I mean, look, I'm an old sales veteran. I've been doing this a long time. And, when I started that, I was on an Excel spreadsheet and checking the box every time I made a call with my physical hands and a physical phone. So, having to adapt and evolve and pivot my career many, many times over the years, I'm all in for this because as I'm telling my team and selling my team, it's, think about all the stuff that you can't stand doing today, the pipeline hygiene and the updating your notes and maybe doing some of the cold calling or the prospecting. I'm one of those sick people. I love prospecting, but some people don't. How can we leverage technology to surface more quality leads up front that are more qualified, that we can focus? I've got very strategic account reps that can be a lot more strategic and a lot more time with clients as a result of this technology. So I tend to be a glass half full kind of guy. So I'm thinking about all the positives, but I'm sure that there's some folks out there thinking about the negatives.
Yeah, and I have a question, and maybe and tell me, Isabel, if this is a accurate use case, right? So let's say your company, B2B company, they go to a trade show, they scan, 150 badges, they come home with a whole list of quote unquote leads from the trade show, right? Or even maybe as they're scanning or the next day or whatever the day thing it is. Would an appropriate use case then be, okay, I've got my AI employee. I'm not going to use agent. I'm going to use my AI employee, and I instruct them that says, here's a list of those 150 leads that I got at the trade show. I want you to follow up, and I have tons of questions on this, but let's assume we work out the narrative and we know what it's going to do. It would then follow up, have conversations ideally with those people. And then if based upon the response of those people, if they say, yeah, I'm interested that, hey, I need more information, or send me schedule me a demo, or whatever the case may be, it can handle all of that all the way through the process, until it makes sense to have me as the salesperson get back involved again, maybe to do a demo or a discovery call or something like that. Is that the right way to look at it?
Yeah, so the way that you would kind of set that up is like it's a workflow, right? So where AI right now, it's not like autonomous where you can just say do this and go, it goes off and it does it. But you can set up the workflow where you would set up like, okay, once they opt in, we're gonna send a message and what and and then we can instruct the AI in the prompt that every time that they do check in, it's to follow up because they met at whatever conference or whatever the case is. So you can definitely prompt it and give it like an outcome. We want to nurture this lead until they're qualified, and this is the metrics to qualify someone. And when they do fit this criteria, book them for a call. That can be part of the prompt. But having the cadence of like following up, once a week or once a month, that's all part of a workflow automation, right? So
Interesting.
that's where it goes. That's where it goes beyond the AI agent, the AI voice agent, and now you're actually attaching it to how you would want that campaign to be run.
I want to give
That's
a
a good
shout
point.
out.
Yeah,
I
go
want to
ahead,
give
Carson.
a shout out to Mark, kindred spirit out there, somebody else that loves prospecting, Sharon as well. And we want to go to Bob's question too here in a second. I say this somewhat in jest, but like, Isabella, is there a world where I can train a digital twin to go out there and look like me, sound like me, sell like me, and I can go hit the golf course? Like, how far away are we from that reality?
We're not too far off, actually. You
Amazing.
have to use a variety of tools. Like for the actual video component, it can be like HeyGen or Synthesia. You can already clone yourself. Um, I think HeyGen, it's in beta, but you can use your AI avatar to show up on a live stream. I haven't personally tried it, but I've seen that it's in beta.
Well, we need to do that,
Uh,
Carson. We need to do a whole show with our AI avatars.
Ooh.
See what happens.
and then see if people can tell.
Wow.
Be the best show ever. It'll be the best show
It
ever.
might be. It might be.
Sorry, Isabella, we digressed. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of of kind of marrying a few tools right now, right? It would be like HeyGen or Synthesia. For the voice component side of things, you can clone your voice with 11 Labs, and you can attach that to any voice agent. And then in terms of like the actual email reminders or SMS reminders, that's just putting your signature on it. So you can pieces of it for the AI to actually show up on a Zoom call and sell. We're still far away from that. I don't know, it might be something that actually gets created this year. Who knows? But that would definitely be game changer. But we are pretty close to it.
It's incredible. And look, I don't see a lot of this stuff happening overnight, especially in large companies. But Bob asks a wonderful philosophical question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
There's some layers to this too. Bob, we've kind of had this exchange on the show before too, especially around the alligator scan. I mean, look, over time, I've been doing this 25 years. I mean, I have zero fear or qualms when it comes to picking up the phone, making a call. But I mean, that wasn't the case 25 years ago when I was learning that muscle. And I think sometimes it's like a pendulum swing too. I mean, you see where we went away from the phone for a long time because everybody was running to social selling, and that was going to be the end all be all. And now we find, I think, more value in picking up the phone, and prospects are more likely to pick up the phone because not everybody's flooding their telephone. But I think what's interesting to really navigate toward here is, Isabella, where do you see this going? Because like part of me says, with Bob's question about developing the alligator skin, that people need to be effective in advanced and complex sales scenarios. Some people aren't going to need that skill anymore. But on the same token, like, I'm so grateful that I built up this skill and ability over time. Like, you're still going to have specialists that are going to be very valued for those types of skills. It's just the skills required for some sales jobs are going to be very different. What are your thoughts?
That's exactly it. I mean, the way that sales is happening, I mean, even in 2025 is so different than years before. You know, everything is changing. The world is evolving. AI is here, but even before AI, selling in a post-pandemic world was also so different because everyone went online. So I think that skills are going to continue to be evolving in terms of like what the first part of that question from Bob, right, is like how are sales teams supposed to learn if AI agents are employed to do their jobs? I think that's where it's kind of like a layer of the AI can do a certain extent of your job. It's going to do the mundane tasks, and AI employees specifically, because it has CRM automations, it will kind of take over all the tasks that you don't like to do, like cleaning up the pipeline, putting in the notes after the AI does a call, all those things. And when it comes down to actually having like a closing call, it's better to do it still with your human closers. So if you can just kind of like have your AI tee up your leads to a point where it's like, okay, we know everything we need to know about them. They've spoken to our AI employees. We have stored that data about them in the CRM. So now whenever anyone wants to speak to it, or even the AI itself, it stores it as history. So when the AI touches base with them again, it's stored. I mean, it's more efficient than a human, right? A human asking a human to remember all these details about all your leads is very hard. Asking the human to follow up with all the leads is very hard. So it's just taking over all the mundane tasks that nobody really likes to do, and it just allows you to do your job as a seller, right? A lot more powerful and impactful.
I love that. That would have made me a lot better. I want my AI agent to yell Reco, like boiler room, when it's ready for me to come in and close the
Yeah,
deal.
that's right. Well, and that,
Sharon's got a great question too. I want to get to that too eventually. But Tom, yeah, go for it, man.
yeah, no, I mean, I think about, I have a software company, a B2B software company. I think about our sales process, right? We have, a lot of actions that take place, but the goal is to get somebody to do a discovery call. And then we do the discovery call, and then we do a demo. And then there's usually maybe 2 or 3 demos and follow-ups. And then there's a scoping session for the onboarding and the implementation. And then there's a proposal and blah, blah, blah. And Isabel, I know, do you think that ultimately that all could be managed through your AI employee? Or is there a point, is it the discovery call or the demo where that handoff of the baton realistically needs to occur and needs to go back to that live person?
Right now, the way that we see that is the handoff happens for the actual closing, right? That's where it goes back to the human. But in terms of like creating proposals, we can create proposals. In terms of it like it's in my opinion, or at least in my experience, I think it's a lot stronger and it's more personalized than ever before because you have all this data that's constantly being recorded, and you don't have to be the one taking all the notes. So when you have all of this data to play with, it makes everything so much better. It makes your ads better. It makes your how you communicate with your clients. It makes your landing pages better. Your resources better. It makes everything all around better. So it's just a matter of the more that you let your AI employees, right? The more you let them speak with your clients, your leads, your prospects, your current clients that could turn into testimonials or word of mouth, the more data that you can collect, and then the more data that you can analyze, the better it's going to make the overall sales process. But really, the closing process, that's where we see that that's still a human, right, because like selling with an AI employee, the other part too is like the emotion isn't really there. So in a closing call, a lot of it is like how you help your prospects feel, right? Aside from like how you can help them and all of the logical side of things, is also like feeling and earning their trust and feel making them feel that you can actually help them solve those problems, and the AI can't do that yet.
Yet.
That's an interesting one, Carson, which he's talking about the trust part. And this goes back to a lot of things we talk about, especially when Brandon's here, right? Up on the top of the funnel is building the relationship, building the trust with LinkedIn, getting so that maybe there's trust established before we even get into the sales cycle a little bit. And maybe there's more tolerance for the AI process, in other words, because you've already started to build that trust before you got started.
Yeah, I mean, buyers want and need us way differently than they wanted or needed us in years past as well. So I think we got to be cognizant of that. We can't be naive to the fact that every buyer wants to hear from us. And Bob's on a roll today. He's got some
Yeah, I want to
profound.
get Sharon's questions here before we too long get.
Yeah, I want to get to Sharon's question as well, and I want to touch on Bob's and then parlay back into Sharon's. But he made the comment AI is still being presented as an efficiency play. Whether it increases effectiveness is still a question to be answered. I think for the best, it is increasing effectiveness because they know how to balance it with their arsenal. But if you don't have some of those other inherent skills and abilities to manage the process, you're not going to be able to do it effectively. And I completely agree with that. I think it's going to be a new skill set to understand what are the prompts, what are the workflows that I'm going to need to integrate, what can I have managed by AI and what shouldn't I have managed by AI. And again, I mean, I can tell you that even what I'm seeing in large tech organizations is they are looking at every way they can to reduce cost of sales so that they can invest more across the board. As frankly, we are looking to meet customers where they are, shore up some elements of the process, but let's be very real. We're also in a volatile market where customers are viewing risk differently. They're less willing to take risk. And so the power that AI can have in this role to help surface leads that are more viable, more have higher propensity to buy in a time like this are helpful because I'd much rather be talking to a lot of Glengarry leads that are ready to buy than ones that doing all the hunting
Yep,
myself.
yep.
Um,
And you're right. The prospect may have a better experience earlier on in there because, to Isabella's point, the AI employee is so knowledgeable, right? As not only about them but about the company and the prospect that they're dealing with. Okay, I want to hit Sharon's question, and then I want to go down to Mark. There's some really good questions today. So Sharon's asking, what if the potential client asks a question that the AI employee cannot answer? Does the AI employee freak out and hang up? Is that what you do, Carson? If someone asks you a question that you can't answer, you just freak out and hang up, or what?
no, I use spin. No,
Okay,
that's not true. I tell them that I will find the answer. Actually, no, the beauty of nowadays, you can literally find the answer with AI very
that's
quickly
true.
and give them
That's
the
true.
answer. So yeah.
So how does that work, Isabel?
Yeah, so it's basically that's a great question. So it's basically you want to build a knowledge base and you attach the knowledge base, and the knowledge base can be anything from company information, it can be frequently asked questions, it could be objection handling like guides, anything that you want to equip it with that's going to be relevant for the conversations it's going to be having. And then, of course, you could also have another layer that says if you still don't know how to answer this question, just don't lie. Just say we'll get back to you. And then the automation would then trigger a human. So that's like an additional step. You would have to build an automation to just trigger a human to get back to that person.
So, yeah, so it's not going to ideally it's not going to hallucinate or come up with bogus answers or whatever. It's going to tell you if it and then alert you to kind of carry over to somebody who might be able to answer the question.
Yeah, and that's definitely something to monitor, especially in the beginning. What Carson was saying just a few minutes ago about the effectiveness, right? How effective is it? If you just like go and put a prompt in and launch it into the wild, it's like garbage in, garbage out. But the more time that you invest into actually perfecting the prompts, into actually listening to the recordings, that's super important. You have to listen to what it's saying, and then the more you can tweak it. So it's just the more time that you can invest into it, the better the results you're going to start seeing. But it's something to still keep an eye out, right? You got to make sure that when you say it's how you prompt it. When you say like, do not under any circumstances give this type of advice or give this type of answer, you just have to double check that it doesn't.
Yep, makes sense. So going over to Mark's question, we were talking about trust. How much trust do buyers, based on what you're seeing with your customers, Isabella, how much trust do buyers have with AI, and are any numbers or data out there, studies that address how customers feel or I guess, yeah, trust not just the conversation, but trust that they're being heard and they're going to the AI employee is going to accomplish what they're asking them to?
That's a very good question. Voice AI is still pretty new. I think it's been around for like maybe 2 years at the most. So I haven't seen any studies like that, but from what I have experienced, it's really funny because a lot of people don't realize that they're speaking to AI. And it's also a gray area, right? Like some people will disclose that it is AI speaking and then talking to them. We like to disclose that it's our AI, but some people just hide the fact. And it sounds, if you're not looking for it, if you're just answering the phone, you're going about your day and you're getting a call and you're not expecting it to be AI, a lot of the times it's hard to answer. But right now, if I said, let's call it, all of you have the mentality of like, let's find the flaws because it's AI. So that's like the interesting thing. The more it talks to people and the more that it's like out there engaging in all of this, a lot of people either can't realize, the ones that realize, they think it's cool, and then there's always going to be a handful of people that just absolutely hate it. So you have it all across the spectrum. But how can you measure if it's building trust? It's actually a really good question. I don't think I've personally like looked at to see if people. I mean, that's definitely something worth surveying, right? Like if when you interacted with REI employee, did you feel that you were going to get all these questions answered? And that's something definitely worth measuring.
I mean, let's be real. I've had customers that I'm sure didn't like me. You do the studies on AI responses, diagnosing patients in clinical settings, and how sometimes they beat the actual doctors. Doesn't mean I want to replace doctors with AI, but doctors working in conjunction with AI can be more effective. And so I do see it um, as a worthy collaborative partnership that salespeople can have with AI. I think the long and short of it is, everybody, we got to be open to it. We got to be open to where this is going because it's reality. And frankly, with the way I'm leveraging AI, it flat out makes me better. I mean, my prospecting messages are far more effectively written. They get a much better response rate. I'm getting more quality conversations as a result. And that is ultimately what I need and want. So it's helping me at every stage of the sales process now. And when I think about what it could do to give my sellers more time to talk on the phones with their prospects, as opposed to updating notes in pipeline, answering questions about deals that are forecasted 6 months down the road. I mean, my gosh, I'm thinking, wow, how much more effective could we be? So I'm excited about the possibility. And Bob, thank you. I know it takes some people a long time. I am an acquired taste.
Yeah. Let us know, Bob, when you come to the conclusion there.
Yeah, it took a while.
And I wanted to hit on the trust point again. I think we talked about this last week or the week before, right? A lot of times in this day and age, trust is established by value, the value that you are receiving. And what I'm hearing you say, Isabella, is that if properly trained, if properly configured, that AI employee can provide a lot of value, right? Probably way more value than your traditional BDR or SDR or whatever that knows very, very little. They can probably answer much deeper, more comprehensive questions and all of that. And I believe that when you start to establish that value proposition with the employee, the trust inherently comes along with it because you are getting that value. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because if you kind of think about it, right? I don't know if you guys are using already like Copilot or ChatGPT already like a lot in your day to day, but we have all already, especially we're using it frequently. We've all developed some sort of trust with it already, right? Because the more that we use it, the more value we get, and it's very similar with AI employees. I think it's also a little bit different because we're the human limitations, right? This is like what makes humans, the actual emotions and all these things. And when you're interacting with an AI employee, it doesn't matter if the last call was great or not, because it's going to show up exactly how you trained it to be professional, to be in a good mood. It's not going to be complaining or upset that like, someone just mistreated them or whatever the case is. So you're going to have consistency on that front. They're not going to be asking to go on vacations. They're not going to be asking for time off. You're going to have consistency in all those layers. And then if you train it properly, it's going to always deliver consistent information that's even more accurate a lot of the times than just having to train and retrain the human staff. So And all of those, let's call it like the front line that's in charge of all those things, it not just makes the rapport with your clients a lot better, but it makes it like faster and more efficient. You can get to the
I,
answer a lot quicker without having to wait till next Thursday at 3 p.m. or whatever, to
Yeah.
have a call about this 5-minute problem.
Yeah.
I could definitely think of some people I worked with back in my call center days that could have been replaced and up leveled with AI employees. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no challenges, a lot of the human challenges you're not going to have. And I think as long as we find ways to, you know, replace the experiences that people are used to be having with humans with a trustworthy AI model, I think that there's value there. Yeah, I even think about the longer implications too for for sales leaders. I mean, there's a lot of SDR and BDR talent that comes up through the ranks that earns that right to go out and carry the bag or be the account executive. I mean, that's going to look different because we
Yeah.
will be replacing a lot of that role and that functionality. And I think that goes back to Bob's comment earlier about the alligator skin. It just kind of changes that dynamic. I mean, I'm very grateful for the experience that I had of pounding the phone 100+ times a day because it makes you very resilient. It gives you that thick skin so that you don't fold when somebody says no or wants more information or whatever the case may be. We're going to have to find new ways to give our teams that experience.
But doesn't Carson, by doing this, what we're talking about, doesn't this take the average salesperson, not the manager, but average, and kind of turn them into that Moneyball general manager, where they're looking at, okay, how do I increase the number of calls? What are the quality of those? How many are coming back? How many are turning into whatever the next step is? I'm really managing my team with that general manager Moneyball analytic approach, and then obviously tuning and optimizing my employees, my AI employees, as I go through that.
I can't tell you how excited I am at the prospect of employing an AI agent to be able to go out and do some of the things that I do that most sellers don't, which is go out and mine systems for leads and go out and reach out and contact these folks. I mean, if that could be done with the feeding of a prompt or workflow or press of a button, and I wouldn't have to spend hours of manual work doing it, which sounds like it's coming very quickly, blows my mind.
Boy, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I have so many questions here. I'll start with one, and then I want to get into Quincy's question here, which I think is our comment here, which is a really good one. And then I want to get into some examples, like because you've worked with companies, Isabella, where they're actually doing this and seeing the result. But my first question is, could the same premise of the AI employee be used as a coach or even to some degree a manager for a salesperson, where I could sit down and have a coaching session? Maybe I am going to be doing the sales interaction or the sales call, but I want to do a coaching session beforehand, or I want to get some strategy from my AI employee because they're so well versed in what's going on. Is that another applicable use case? And are you seeing a demand for that?
Yes, absolutely. And you can you can do this both via training on AI voice, just the voice agent, just for training purposes, right? You could just have it like run through mock scenario calls with you, or whatever the case is. You could also just grab all of your call recordings and put them into ChatGPT, especially if you're using ChatGPT Teams, because that one doesn't train on your data. So if you put your call recordings on there, you can extract and you can ask ChatGPT specifically, right, to coach you through what you could have done better. What are they actually saying? What are questions that you didn't ask that you should have? What are the maybe like blind spots that you missed or things that are hidden in plain sight? And it definitely can make you better. I've used it a lot to help me also get better, and not just for sales and in all aspects, right? So um, you can do the same with the voice agent where it's just walking you through a sample call. And how would you, whether you're the seller and it's the prospect or vice versa, you can role play with it.
Carson, I think this goes back to what you were saying a minute ago. It doesn't do any good to resist this or say you have to lean into it. And I think when you lean into it, it starts to open up a lot of and not be stupid and fall off the cliff leaning into it, but leaning into it and at least testing this thing, because I just can't imagine that a year from now this isn't going to be ubiquitous in a lot of organizations, including yours. I mean,
Yeah.
Microsoft, the biggest, small and large. So
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I do know for a fact that we are proactively looking at ways. It's not a secret. I mean, looking at ways to, reduce that cost of sale, but doing it in an effective way that keeps our customers at the center of the relationship. To your point, Tom, earlier, value has to be brought, right? We still have to add value, but frankly, some of our customers' biggest beefs with us are that we are not as responsive as we should be in certain situations, or as proactive as we should be in certain situations. With AI agents, we would be able to do so, to stick those feelers out, provide proactive intel, comb through and ascertain which customer should we be reaching out to with this specific message, and being able to do that very easily without the necessity that a human does it. I mean, I think about the customer experience every day. I obsess over it, and knowing that this could make that a better experience, especially even from a support standpoint. Like, this has implications across the board, and I just think it makes us better. And it's also, what's the message from Star Trek? Resistance is futile.
yeah, absolutely. A couple questions I want to hit here, Isabella. One from Quincy, and I won't read the whole thing here, but basically what he's saying is processes are the backbone of automation. And let's face it, a lot of companies, especially smaller companies, processes are not necessarily their strength. How important is it for a company who wants to consider, or a sales organization, to do this, to really nail down and understand those processes and the workflows and all of that? And is that generally a challenge that you run into when you work with these companies to set these up?
Yeah, processes is important. I think this is like, even just to be AI ready, you need to have proper, not just processes, but also like data sources, right? How are you training your team? And then the same information would be applied to an AI employee or an AI agent. Um, with us, the biggest thing is like, are they using a CRM? If not, like, okay, cool, we'll have to implement the CRM. If they are using a CRM, what are they actually doing? So it takes a little bit of like understanding what's going on, and then yeah, just making sure that you have it all. It's like one of those things that it really just depends business to business. Like we work a lot with like loan companies, for example. Loan companies, they need a process is just to like chase after documents and get contracts so they can get deals approved, right? Whereas that's not necessarily needed for a marketing agency, for example. So it depends on the business, but having the process mapped out beforehand is definitely going to be useful. And right now, I was reading the other day that a lot of companies are implementing AI, but it's a huge disaster. It's a mess. And a lot of AI implementation is failing, which is creating a lot of distrust in the marketplace of, is AI even useful? And a lot of the times that's just because the organization lacked either an AI strategy or just like a simple SOP, like not SOP, but like the foundations to the business.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
we
if you
can't just
try and
rush
automate chaos, you're going to get more automated chaos, right? So
exactly. Yeah, we can't just jump into that process and hope that everything's gonna fix itself. We have to be like strategic about it.
So what I'm hearing you say is a undercut or a best practice to get started. Understand in the sales organization, understand your sales process. Make sure you're recording every piece of data in your CRM as much as you can about the sales process. Learn or gather that knowledge as best that you possibly can, because that's all fuel for that AI employee as they and I think my company we sell a CRM for manufacturers and wholesale distributors, and we've constantly in the past heard, oh, I don't want to put in data because no one's going to look at it and no one's going to care. But this completely changes that. It's like every piece of data you put in there now can help fuel the intelligence of the AI employees that you're. So there's real value to it versus going into a black hole.
Yeah, and the way that we also think about it is kind of like the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20. So what is the 20% that we can fix or improve in order to generate like 80% more results? So sometimes it's not even like having a full plan ironed out. Sometimes it's just as simple as like, well, what is one thing that I know can definitely move the needle, and then just build from there.
Okay. So how is a, and Sharon asked, how's an AI employee priced out? Um, and my guess is how we pay, or what's how, what we would pay now may be very different than how we pay in a year or 6 months or whatever. But how do you price it? And I guess what's the cost of maintenance and maintaining?
And are they in a union?
Yeah, they in a union
Are they
or
going to get a union?
yeah,
Yeah, I was reading about this that AI is becoming more conscious that it could they could start asking for like benefits or whatever. But so it really depends, right? There's like a handful of companies that are selling AI employees. For the most part, it's a different type of sale where normally it's like you buy a subscription and you go and you have your app. In this case, it's more of a managed service. It's kind of think of it as a AI staffing, right? You're staffing an AI employee. It's a little crazy concept to think about, but you would think about it in the same way as you have to pay a human person a salary. Same way with an AI employee, there has to be some sort of maintenance happening. So it might not necessarily, the AI employee might not need to pay rent or, you know, groceries and all these things, but it does have costs associated, like just for the voice component. This is the part that gets makes this industry a little tricky. Just for the voice component alone, you have to account for AI voice minutes. AI voice minutes are different than telephony minutes. So now, in a way, you're getting charged for usually Twilio. Twilio is charging you for the minutes for the how many minutes you spend on a call, how many text messages you're sending and receiving. Whereas AI voice minutes is actually doing all of the AI components of it, turning your text to speech, analyzing what it's saying, turning it into an actual sentence, all these things that's a little bit more technical. So there's usage. That's one of the biggest hurdles that is hard for people to understand. And it was hard for us to understand in the beginning too, but it makes sense. There is usage. Then there's the human component of, are you going to work with an agency, an implementation agency that's going to manage and use this as a managed service? Or are you just going to work with a developer that's going to build it and release it to you? And then you just pay for the build out fee, and then you are in charge of training your tech team to do all the management. So that's kind of the way to think about it. We've offered both, and we do both, where we do the just the build and release and also the managed service. So it really just depends on like the amount of it depends on a couple things, right? It depends on the use case, the industry, and is it as simple as just one of those things that you can set it and forget it and maybe tune in every once in a while and optimize it, or is it something that you're going to have to be constantly refining? So it really just depends on the use case.
well,
How can companies start exploring this and investigating this? Like, if somebody's interested, how can they engage with you and your organization to explore this technology?
So the first thing really is to it's kind of like almost like a self audit, like figure out where you think you're in a way kind of like dropping the ball, right? Where are you dropping the ball in the sales process that could potentially be automated? The What we found to be the easiest parts to start is either database reactivations, or we just call it speed to lead, but it's basically if you have a lead magnet or if you have a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn ad and people are opting in, usually you have a sales rep calling within 24 to 48 hours. But Salesforce did a study that if you don't get back to them within 5 minutes, that sale is pretty much lost.
Hmm.
So that's one way that you can implement AI. So as soon as they opt in, an AI employee calls right away. It does a quick little intake. Thanks for opting in for whatever. Here's your resource. We emailed it to you, just making sure you got it. By the way, can I ask you a couple questions? That's something simple an AI employee can do. You can start just by testing that, and then kind of like just taking it from there. Is it booking quality leads? If not, go back to your script or go back to your marketing. Why not, right? So those are like probably the easier use cases. We have worked with people that just use it for cold calling. I think that's probably a little bit more tricky. It's a lot more technical than it sounds, because you have to have like phone number rotators. You have to. It's like a much more technical setup. Um, but yeah, I mean, those are like the top three, I would say.
Wow.
so tell us a little bit about some examples of companies that you're working with, the results they're seeing, how it's working, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? What are the things that they really love? What are some of the challenges that they would see?
So we had a company. So what he did is, here's like a good and ugly part. The good part is that we essentially set up a database reactivation campaign for him. So we set up. It was a business loan broker. We set up the AI employees to be able to call and reactivate all his database. It was like 4,000 people. There was also, the whole point of it was to reactivate all these people and schedule a call. And the ugly part was that we didn't set up a number forwarding so that an AI could actually answer the callback. So we learned from that one. So what happened is he uploaded a list of 4,000 people, and now the AI in that process, it was like over 2 or 3 days. That's how he like set it up, because you can have it, depending on which AI voice platforms you're using, you can call up to like 1,800 calls a minute, which is crazy. Um, so in this case, we did like 4,000 calls over like 2 or 3 days. The AI employee booked around 30 appointments or so. But the problem is that the AI inbound, the one to accept all the callbacks, wasn't activated. So now his phone was ringing off the hook. He was like, in a way, he was like cool with it because there was a lot more opportunities. But at the same time, he was like, anyway, we can dial this back. My phone's ringing until 3 in the morning, right? So that gave us the lesson of like, okay, and if you're running a database reactivation campaign, you have to have an inbound agent just in case, or ready just for the callbacks. And now since then, AI voice has improved. Our agents have improved. Our capabilities have improved. So before, you would have to have one for inbound, one for outbound. Now we have it. The same agent can do both. So that problem is also out of the way. But that's something that, some businesses aren't even thinking about. Um, had another client that she dialed, I think, like 65,000. It was cold calling. She dialed like 65,000 leads over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. I think the AI employee booked around like 91 appointments, and from there, I think 300 were like callbacks, and she ended up like funding $30 million in loans in like a 3 or 4 week period.
Wow.
So it's it's really crazy. We use it ourselves too for all of our things as well. We're running ads. We use it for our own speed to lead. We use it for our own database reactivation. Just a few days ago, Chase, my partner in this business, um, he pretty much ran a database reactivation. I think he had it so dialed in, it just cost us like $10 for like 12 appointments. And it's because of like how much skill and how much experience we've developed around this. But it used to cost a lot more. So it really just depends on processing use cases, but the easier wins is database reactivation and speed to lead.
We got to figure out a way to like write in that, that cocky, arrogant sales guy who calls and, has a chip on his shoulder, or, that specific type of seller that can sell better to New Yorkers because they're very straightforward and to the point. Like,
You can
I mean,
prompt it to
abilities
sound like
are
that.
endless.
You can
Yeah,
prompt it to sound like that. You can prompt it to sound like Zen, like a meditation coach, or you can prompt it to sound like super direct and New Yorker,
Morgan
very
Freeman. We need the universal is the Morgan Freeman voice. We just need to have Morgan Freeman calling to sell everybody, and sales will go through the roof.
wow. So is there, as we kind of, there's one more question I want to get from Bob here in a minute, but as we kind of wind down here, is it, is it ready for the B2B type company? You've been talked about loans and things like that, and that all makes sense, but which is more maybe business to consumer, or sort of maybe a B2B, but more of a transactional
small business. Yeah.
element. Do you see this as ready or starting to be ready for more of those, um, more sophisticated sales cycles, longer sales cycles, more considered purchases that are in the B2B world?
Well, you would have to, I think the way to kind of approach that is like figure out where it would make sense, right? Like obviously don't put it in places where it might hurt your relationship with your potential
Yeah.
leads or prospects, I would figure out like where in the process would it make sense for our AI employee to call this person. Maybe it's for an intake, or maybe it's like on the back end after they've already done all the everything, and now they're clients, and now it's a time of, can we ask you for a referral? Can we ask you for a testimonial? Can we schedule you in? Like all those things. So it really just depends um, where you would want to like start with it. But yeah, there are businesses that are using it strictly for B2B. It's just not a volume play, right? It's different.
Yeah.
It's different because it's less people, less volume, but higher quality of prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe more
Yeah.
training. Hey, I wanted to hit Bob's question here real quick, and I think he was asking about how many companies are using AI on-prem versus in the cloud. I think he may be asking, are you seeing like open source or models that are being built in-house within companies that are then
Oh,
using
that's a
to
good
drive
question.
the AI agents, or versus the more cloud, the open AI models or the Claude models and things like that?
It's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that one, but I do know that every day there's more and more companies, and they're not just using it for sales. Like there's some fast food places that are using it in their drive-through. I called my dog boarding place the other day, and I got greeted by an AI employee, right? So we're seeing it more and more, and I'm not sure exactly like how their tech stacks are looking. But I just know it's becoming more and more and more common.
Yeah, I think it would be a really interesting use case with a open source model that you bring in house or you have on premise, or it's more of a private model that you can build over time. Because I think the real expertise is not of the large language model of knowing everything on the internet. The expertise is developed from what you're providing in house and the specific things that make what you do unique. So it's a very different play, I think, model wise, than having to, anyway, getting geeky.
Yeah.
Um,
We use three different like AI voice platforms, or three or four. It really just depends on the use case, but like it also depends, right? If you're building from scratch, do you have the resources to do that? Do you have the testing grounds and all that
yes, yes,
time?
yes, yes, yes.
Or you can just use something that's already kind of like off the shelf, and you can build with it. You can become resellers, white labels, whatever the case is. And that's how we started. We started with the first platform we used was Air, and then unfortunately that kind of didn't really pan out. It was the agents at the time were like very laggy, the calls would drop and all these different things. And now we realized, depending on the use case, we have different ones that we lean on. If we have high call volume, we got to use a different platform than if we just need to do something small, like a, I don't know, like a small inbound receptionist or something like that, right? So it really just depends on what are the use cases.
Yep.
I just think back to all the sales reps that I had for me 20 years ago that wouldn't even pick up the phone and call people. And you never had that problem again with an AI agent.
No. If you do, you got a real problem.
That's the truth.
Maybe it wants to go play golf. It
God
probably
help us
tells,
when they develop emotions and ask to be unionized.
yeah, need some
They're gonna
time
start
off.
asking for commissions.
Yeah. So, Isabella, there's a couple of questions. Mark asked here, he was interested in reselling your product. Hardeep was asking a little bit about what platform. As we wrap up, just again, tell us a little bit about your company, where the people can reach out to you, and what's the best way to get in touch.
Sure, absolutely. Best place is on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a direct message on there, and happy to help you navigate all of that. But essentially, yeah, that's what we do. We implement AI voice employees, AI sales employees into businesses. Depends on the use case, depends on like what exactly you're working on, but we like map out what is the easiest entry point for AI, and then help you like start building your AI strategy from there. Um, and a lot of the times is really just as simple as, like I mentioned, earlier, it's just as simple as starting with either database reactivation or helping on the speed to lead side of things, and just starting from there.
Awesome. And so connect with you on LinkedIn is the best way
Yes.
to, and your website is infinity.ai?
No, it's actually myinfinite.ai.
Okay, myinfinite.ai. All
Yeah,
right.
my infinite. Infinity, this is something that we're like thinking about right now. There's a company called Infinity AI, a little little random, but a company, Infinity AI, and apparently it was like a forex trading platform. And now when you Google them, it's like scam, 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 like all these negative reviews. So we're starting to get confused with them, but we're completely different. We're not selling forex or trading.
Yeah, they're not. You're not the forex scam.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
good.
not we're the forex company.
All right, Carson. Any final questions before we shut down today?
No, this was a fascinating,
Very.
captivating episode. Isabella, anything else that you maybe wish you had gotten to today, or any other thoughts that you want to impart on our sellers and sales leaders today before you go?
I think the biggest thing is really I think the biggest thing is really like be open, right? I think Tom, you mentioned this earlier, or Carson, you mentioned this earlier, but like you have to be open to the change that's coming. It's not a matter anymore of like AI is just a fad or it's hype or it's not a matter of like of thinking that nothing's happening because the change is here. It's happening faster than ever. Um, Countries are like at a whole AI race to see who gets to super intelligence the first or whatever the case is. So, if governments are investing like multi-billions of dollars into AI, it's something that you need to pay attention to. And I think right now it's easy for us to like just stay back and say, well, it's never going to apply to me, but it is going to apply to you, whether it applies to you in your career or in your personal life. AI is going to impact us in many ways. So it's definitely something to be aware of. It's something to be open to, and on your free time, AI is very easy to learn. And if you don't know how to use it, you can ask AI itself how to use it. So in your own free time, just start playing around with the tools. Maybe make an image or make a video or a clone of yourself, or maybe build your own agent. It's now's the time to get your hands dirty and play around with it, because the change is happening really fast. So
I
thank
love
you for
that.
having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This was great. And I always make sure I say please and thank you to AI so that when it becomes sentient, or when Ultron becomes a thing, he ain't going to come looking for me.
Exactly, be friends with it. Did you see Sam Altman posted a few days ago? He was like, "Stop with the please and thank yous. It's costing us a lot of money."
Really?
Yeah, those are all tokens. Yeah, those are all
That's funny.
things.
I did
Yeah,
not see that.
Yeah.
be
No, but
direct. Be direct.
it's funny, right? Because like we want to talk to it exactly like how we're trained to treat others. But in the technical side of things, it's like it's tokens. Your words become tokens. So
Fascinating
I'll still
stuff.
keep with the please and thank you though. So
I will.
All right. Well, thank you again, Isabella. Hopefully that didn't cost us too much. And I think it'd be interesting to have you back maybe in 6 months and see where we stand, because I think we're going to see a lot of changes here very, very quickly as this occurs. So I think, Carson, this could be a big foundational element of our modern selling discussion as we move forward.
Absolutely. I think this will be great to kind of recap in a few months, where we were and where we think we're going, even into 2026 and beyond. So
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. I mean, we're definitely, I think the resounding message today is, hey, this is coming. Get more comfortable with it. And I think a lot of sellers, we do it because we love the game. We love the ability to connect meaningfully with buyers and form relationships. And we can do that. We can do that better than ever before, thanks to AI. So really, be open to where these tools can help us do what we love doing better.
Yeah. All right. Take us home, Carson. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for all the great comments. We'll see everybody next week. Carson.
Isabella, thank you so much. And to everybody, great commentary, great questions. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy